sharing magazine with the truth of the matter at the heart of everything, always in all ways. A no holds barred, fully experiential space where you can read, watch, and listen to some of the most authentic humans sharing their stories, dropping wisdom, and cultivating a community you always want to be part of. Are you ready to go all in?
Welcome back to another edition of All In Live Magazine. Welcome. I'm the Trigger Rich Bond Trigger with my wonderful co-host again, Sandra D. Robinson.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be here. We have a fun show for you today.
And I like the topic of being daring. That will be our theme today. And so with that, are you very daring? Are you the adventurous one, Sandra?
Is there a sliding scale? Sometimes I think, yes, I am. And then I look at someone like my husband. I married a stuntman. Daring in his mind and risk is a completely different level. So I would say the most daring thing that I've done is marrying a stuntman. There you go.
I grew up with a very active, daring family. We would climb trees. We would go to Colorado, go hiking, whitewater rafting, all that type of stuff. But as I've gotten older, I think I'm even more daring as I've gotten older.
It usually goes the other way around.
I don't know why that is, but I think
whitewater rafting. That scares the crap out of me. That's extremely daring. And there was a time in my life when I thought, oh, I could one day do that. Now I'm like, no.
Well, today's guest is a globetrotter. She's a daring woman, and I know she loves motorcycles. So why don't you do the official introduction and get the show rolling here?
You spoiled it. I was going to save some of that stuff for the end. Let me introduce you to our guest today. She is as diverse as they come. Kelley Mondesiré is a seasoned global connector. She empowers businesses to transcend boundaries and thrive in an incredibly complex international landscape. She is a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, but prior to this career, she had a successful run in American international television business as an executive producer, designer, post-production house owner. Currently, she is an international speaker. She's the host of The Kelley Show, real people in real stories in real time. She rides her motorcycle, as we've already let you know, and she enjoys fishing. There's so much more to Kelley. Let's just get into it.
Here she comes, Dr. Kelley. Great to see you.
Hello, nice to see you both. And may I say, Sandra, if your husband has an older brother, hook me up.
You're so cute.
I'm serious.
I've been asked that before, actually. So
I'm kind of guessing, Dr. Kelley, that you are a daring person. Would you consider yourself a daring person, an adventurer? What do you consider yourself?
I just do me. That's I can't help myself. I have a mantra, heaven doesn't want me and hell's afraid I'm going to take over. So I'm kind of stuck here with the rest of you idiots. So here I am.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, what a great thing. So a lot of times I know that you've done a lot of travel, not just for speaking, but you've explored quite a bit, right? What's the most daring thing that you think you've done in regards to travel? A place maybe that you've gone? An adventure, an activity?
It's difficult to say. However, I would say going to Battambang, Cambodia by myself about 10 years ago.
What?
Oh. By yourself?
Why?
Well, because I always travel solo. I don't care to travel with anyone unless they're really like tall, dark, handsome, and likes to do the same things I like to do. But however, I was in Cambodia and I was told, why don't you go over to Battambang? It's the second largest city in Cambodia. So of course, I did that. And Battambang is one of those places in the world you can disappear. However, it was the experience of a lifetime. And I ended up on this 2-mile goat path up a mountain, one of their two large mountains in outside Battambang, where the Khmer Rouge used to throw people off. And I was on the back of like a 325 Honda with a guy who was about 6'5" and about 250 pounds, and there was barely room for me on the seat. And, the gravel's coming down at the cliff, and I was like, oh, crap, man, I'm going to see Jesus for sure.
Of all places, of all places and things to be doing at the time too. That's pretty funny. But
Now,
well, go ahead. Go ahead.
no. Since we teased the motorcycle stuff, and you just threw that out there, where do you get the love for motorcycle? You've shown me pictures of your bike. It's not a small little bike. You got a bike.
Yeah, I got a bike. I own a 2008 Harley Davidson Fat Boy, and I've been all over the United States, mostly solo riding. I have what they call INS and Bun.
Yeah.
And I always loved bikes. And I was a passenger as a teenager. I always had boyfriends that had bikes. And when I started working for the Today Show way back in the day, you could park for free overnight in Rockefeller Plaza. So I thought, oh, great, I'll get a bike. And at that time, I thought I'd get a 750 special. However, I ended up meeting who became my husband and moved to Darien, Connecticut, and that put the kibosh on the bike. I go fast forward, I don't know how many years, and I ended up being in a relationship with someone who was a prominent figure on Wall Street, but also on the weekends owned a Harley Davidson dealership. But I had been in a head-on collision in Portugal about 10 years prior to that. I was a passenger in a car, and a motorcyclist came head into the windshield and out through the dashboard. It was a very ugly experience. So I had lost my passion for bikes. However, I realized if I didn't get on the back of a bike with this guy, it would be the end of the relationship. So did it, overcame it, and I was okay on the back of the bike until one day someone said to me at his dealership, why don't you ride? And I said, well, I'm on the back. I don't think I need to ride anymore. I said, besides, in cases of an emergency, I'm always laughing boy that has to do the CPR. She said, well, what if you're in an emergency and there are two laughing boys that can do CPR, but only one can ride and get help? And that put a completely different spin on the situation.
That, yeah.
So I went to motorcycle safety school. My first bike was a Buell Blast. I rode on that for one season. I rode on a sports the next season, and then I got the Fat Boy and fell in love. And when the relationship went south, people said to me, well, sell the bike. And I said, why? And they said, well, you can't ride by yourself. And I said, why not?
Watch
and
me.
when someone tells me you can't do something, that's when I do it. And I just put the big girl panties on. I got on that bike and I started to ride.
That's something that I think encourages a lot of people to be more daring, don't you think? If you have that little kick inside that somebody says, you can't do that, like, whoa, watch. Right?
Yeah, never tell me I can't do something.
That's so true.
So
Now,
what would you say a definition of daring kind of is? How would you describe what daring is to Dr. Kelley?
Well, in thinking about it, knowing I was coming on to this show today, I thought of three points. The first one being, have no fear. Be fearless. Just don't get the little voice in your head that says you can't, you can't, you can't. Just tell it to shut up and just do it. Just do it, like Nike says. And the second one is have no boundaries, because boundaries inhibit your imagination and your creativity. And then the whole world opens up to you. And all these opportunities and adventures follow. And you meet so many people when you're by yourself, and you do what other people think are crazy, which becomes normal to you. And lastly, I would say have no rules. I have no rules because rules are boring, and I don't want to be boring.
Kira, by the way, is supporting your tell the voices in your head to shut up. So
Yes.
thank you, Kira, for chiming in here today.
that's very true. Self-imposed boundaries is actually what that voice is giving you, right? So it's, if you don't listen to it, then you can have that freedom that it
For
seems
true.
that you enjoy.
For true, yeah. And there is no failure. Just laugh at yourself.
And speaking of freedom, you have what a lot of people don't get the opportunity to have, which is dual citizenship.
Yeah.
Ireland and United States, correct?
Yes.
How do you see the Were you born in the United States or born in
I was
Ireland? How
born
did that happen?
here. I'm a mutt, as I call myself. It was easier to get the paperwork from the Irish side of the family as opposed to the Italian side of the family. I had 6 Italian aunts. It wasn't happening. And but having EU citizenship enables me to go back home to Europe. I consider France my second home away from home, Provence.
Yeah.
And traveling as a European citizen has enabled me to visit places that would be a little bit more difficult if I only had the US citizenship.
Ah.
Bonus. That's awesome. Okay. How do you compare the two experiences? How do you compare the two countries? What's the difference to you?
You mean the EU as opposed to the States?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Or
I
I would
have
say
to
Ireland.
say,
No, Ireland in particular. Yeah. Yeah.
well, I can't really speak for Ireland because I've spent more time in France
Okay.
than Ireland by far.
Yeah.
I relate as being more European than American. My habits are European. I prefer to speak French. I prefer to be in Europe. I enjoy just going an hour away on the TGV and being in another country in another language. Most of my friends are in Europe, and I'll be there, yay, in 2 weeks, going home. Yay, Mickey. I get to eat real butter.
So which country is more daring, do you think? Your European country mates and you, or the American country mates and you? Which country is a little bit more daring?
Well, I have crazy friends on both sides of the pond. You
We're
know,
not surprised.
birds
Not
of a feather
surprised.
flock together. So it depends what your definition of crazy is. But I think my craziest friend is here in the States. Yeah.
Well, look at that.
Yeah, she's real crazy. Her name begins with an M and ends with an A, and she knows who she is.
Now, you mentioned boundaries earlier, and I know one of your causes, charities, is Doctors Without Borders.
Yes.
Would you consider them, the doctors that go to these countries, drop in sometimes rough situations, are they daring?
Um, those doctors and nurses and medics and other medical professionals that go to places like Gaza or Ukraine or anywhere in the world where there's conflict, they risk their lives, they give up their professions here, their practices, they leave their families, their friends to do what they believe is right, and that is to heal and help people who are in terrible situations.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us about your background in medicine. Since we mentioned medicine, the traditional Chinese medicine, how did you get attracted to that? Is it from the travels that you did?
No, not really. I am a stellar athlete. I'm a retired full combat Muay Thai champion. And at one point, I had torn we call it in layman's terms, a calf muscle. And the orthopedic surgeon said to me, "Oh, you're not going to play tennis for 6 months, blah, 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 this and this." And someone suggested I go for acupuncture. And I said, "Acupuncture? You nuts? I'm needle phobic." So
Were
I was,
you? Were you really? And you did it
yeah,
then?
absolutely, absolutely. And so I had to bite the bullet because I was that miserable. And I went to a guy, his name is Jay Swathout, if he's still around. Fabulous guy. Hi, Jay. He was a kinesiologist, and I got on the table and I was like in a puddle of sweat because he was gonna, stick needles in me. And he put 2 needles in the affected area, and I laid there for 20 minutes. He massaged it out. I was like, "Oh, it's so sore." And what's the first thing you do when you get off the table? I jumped off the table and I went into a deep squat. And I looked down and they looked down. His assistant looked down and went, "Wow." And all the swelling was down. And I said, "Yo, whatever that was, I need more." So I was getting tired of being in television, as Sandra and you, Rich, you just spend 22 hours in a dark edit
Yeah.
room. Television takes over your entire life. Like,
Yeah.
who was foreign? And oh, it was 2 years ago. I thought it was yesterday. What's their name? And so I wanted to do something else with my life that was more meaningful, as you, Sandra, you do with the horses. And I was at a yoga retreat, and all these women around the table. One was an attorney, one was a fashion designer, like the who's who of executives. And I got to what I did, and everybody, of course, went, woo, the TV, this and this. And I said, I
Yeah.
feel like I did nothing, because the credits, unless like you were in front of the camera, the credits for me, nobody knew what I did. They put it in my pocketbook, which was fine. But however,
Right.
so my yoga teacher said, have you ever thought about medicine? But at the time I was 39. And I said, yeah, but this is like, it's late in the game to go, and do med school. She said, well, what about traditional Chinese medicine? And I said, how did you know I was kind of sort of thinking about that? So at the end of the dinner, a few bottles of wine later, I went back home and in 2 weeks did my research, and I enrolled in one class and said, okay, this resonates with me. And I embarked in 5.5 years of education that covered allopathic and Eastern medicine, Western pharmacology, and Eastern herbal medicine. And I was in private practice on Wall Street for almost 20 years. However, because of my athletic career, I specialized in sports med.
And we're going to talk a little bit about sport because I think there's some daring stories there. We've got a couple fun animal stories, I think, coming up with Dr. Kelley. So stick around. We're going to be right back in just a moment for more of All In Magazine Live. Back for All In Magazine Live. I'm the Trigger Rich Bontrigger, Sandra D. Robinson, my co-host, always with me, and Dr. Kelley of the Dr. Kelley Show. She's got her own show too. So we do want to make sure we plug that in there. So we heard you have a couple cool animal stories. And I grew up on WLS radio with Larry Lujak, a little snot-nosed Tommy, talking about animal stories. So what's a great animal story that you can pull out from your daring adventure? I think there's one about a mongoose.
And a boar?
Oh, well, I moved down south here to South Carolina, and
I like how she slides into the accent. Did you hear that? Like,
yeah, well, I'm a chameleon. That's to my peeps down here. Anyhow, I moved from Wall Street, and no one told me about the copperhead snakes. The only snakes we have on Wall Street are the two-legged ones. So, in less than 2 months, it was 4 for Team Kelley. I learned how to use a machete and a shovel to decapitate copperhead snakes. I spent thousands of dollars ripping out everything that would attract snakes and put down sod. That attracted the wild boars because they like to rip up and roll around in the sod. And then I got special permission from the HOA here to put up a 12-foot heavy-duty fence for 4 months. I said, for God's sake, I moved out of Manhattan because it was getting a little dicey, and now here I'm in Sing Sing. I don't know if anybody knows where Sing Sing is. It's a maximum security prison in New York State. I said, oh, mother of God. But that's not my fun story about animals. I was lecturing in Moscow in 1994, and I brought 50 whole post-production units. It was a beta site for Apple and Adobe. And I was there in Moscow to lecture to over 200 Russian journalists on how to report Democratic presidential elections. So I petitioned the company to send over 50 complete units with software, manuals, this and that, and the other thing. And so they went out over 11 time zones or so ever. But there was this pedestrian mall in Moscow nearby the office was. And every day I'd walk, and every day it'd rain or snow or sleet, but there was this bear in a chair. And there was a man there, and for $5 he would take a Polaroid shot of you sitting next to the bear. So I was told to bring peanut butter to Moscow, which I bartered for a fur hat at one point. But however, I opened up the jar of peanut butter. I made peanut butter sandwiches every day for this bear. And I was fascinated because he would sit and drink carnation condensed milk, and he literally sounded like this. Glub, 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 glub. And like a teddy bear, his feet would go up in the air. I was like out of my mind. So the one day It didn't rain, snow, or sleet. I gave the man the $5. I sat next to the bear and I just pulled the bear next to me and I'm making fuzzy fuzzies and mushy mushies and kissing the bear. And he takes the photo of me and the bear. And then finally he said, "Lady, get off my bear." Well, I had this Polaroid photo for years and years, and I have it here in my office. I had this Polaroid photo in a frame for years in my office, and my patients would always say to me, "What kind of dog is that?" And I said, "Nah, it's not a dog, it's a bear." And I would show them the photo, and the thing's got claws, like, this long, and just, yeah, that's my animal story.
Kira is chiming in, a bear in a chair in Russia. The next
Yeah.
Bond movie title right there for you.
So, we could another time. I'll tell you stories about that trip.
So I'm curious because you do travel, you talk about innovation, you work with innovators.
Mhm.
Are innovators dreamers? Are they daring people? How would you describe the innovators you work with? Because sometimes innovators collide. They don't always play well together, but they're great people if you get the right stuff out of them. So where you put the innovators in your life? Daring or not?
Um, I find them to be dreamers and doers. And if I find someone who would like to be an innovator, I think my gift or my superpower is to draw out that courage that's hidden deep inside and give them the spotlight to shine and become a doer.
What lets you see that spark in them? Is it something they say? Is it a courage that they show in a conversation? What is the indicator to you that they might have that?
I listen to them. Yeah, I listen to them.
So the active listening
Yeah.
is essential to helping unlock their hidden daring nature or their risking nature within them.
You listen to what they have to say. You also look at their demeanor, their facial expressions. What is their body language? And that goes into my data banks. I just don't know. It's a gift I have. I can just determine where they need to uh, shine or be encouraged, or I just know what to say to these people to bring it out. Can't describe it honestly.
Is is
Interesting.
is there
Okay.
hesitation when you get in that mode to kind of push them to say dare a little, risk a little? Do you get a lot of pushback, or the people that you're working with, are they open to the idea of I want to take it, I'm ready for it?
Timing is everything. I never push anyone. Just like a sale, if you're trying to sell something, you're trying to sell a show, you're trying to sell an idea, you're trying to sell a widget, you can't push someone. If they're not ready, if it's not the right moment, it will be rejected. So I always wait for the right moment. And I believe the superpower is when I suggest something, it goes into that person's head and it becomes their idea and the best idea they ever had, and they need to act on it.
I love
Yeah.
it turns into their idea, not your idea. It turns into their idea, and you just let them go, right? You're like, sure, it was your idea, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I don't need the headlines. I like to fly under the radar. Let them have their day in the sun. I've had my days in the sun. Share the wealth, share the joy. That's nice.
A bit of the producer still
Of
in you,
course.
right? Just sit back, set it up, sit back, and
Executive
let it
producer,
go.
give all
Right?
the orders. I
Yeah.
like giving orders.
And you're still speaking, right? You're still going out and speaking. What are the topics that you love to speak on the most, and who do you like to speak in front of?
I enjoy speaking to younger people. I like to speak about leadership, and I always say to these young people that approach me and say, "Do you have any ideas for me?" I always tell them, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't know how to get yourself through an open door, you're done. So I tell them, if you're an artist or you're a scientist, whatever, if you have no social skills, if you have no business skills, go back, take a marketing and a management class, take a basic accounting class, take a basic um, finance class. Go in and grab some social skills, learn how to introduce yourself in a crowd, learn how to speak. Because if you don't have all those combined skills, people will take advantage of you or they'll just walk past you.
So true, so true. And especially, I mean, once we share the television background, you see
Yes,
that a lot with the creatives being taken advantage of. I'm sure that you have some memory of meeting people like that. That is so incredibly important to be able to show up and represent
absolutely.
yourself
Absolutely.
well.
And speak well and stand for what you believe as well.
Well, speaking about your sports career, you did a lot of international stuff. So, what international daring, exciting stories can you tell us about? Because you've been all over place with high level athletes during your career. What magical story can you share?
Oh gosh. Aside from riding the Harley throughout the United States,
Right? Yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah, I would
uh,
say training Muay Thai in Istanbul, Switzerland, learning all my dirty tricks from the Turks. Um, skiing the Alps. I've skied most of the Alps, Val d'Isère and Tignes, that whole chain. I would say riding elephants through
oh,
jungles. What do you call this? Zip lining through
yeah.
forests.
Yeah.
Being thrown off a ferry. Yeah,
Wait,
yeah. I
what?
was on the wrong ferry coming back from Chateau d'If in Marseille, and the ferry was going to Corsica. So, I thought maybe my colloquial French wasn't so great. They said they were going to throw me off the boat, off the ferry, and I said, all right, they're just going to say get off. No, they couldn't. They couldn't dock back on at the pier. So literally the entire ferry of passengers were lined up and they said, okay, and they grabbed me. I was in those 6-inch platform sneakers we used to wear in the 90s and my really nice Canon camera here. And they went, un, deux, trois, allez, allez-vous. Shoo! They threw me off this big ferry. And thank God I landed like a cat in a deep spot. And all these old sailors, this is in the Vieux-Port in Marseille, and they're at the outdoor, bar that's there. And they look at me and everybody's waving as the ferries, bon chance, bon chance, adieu, adieu.
Pulling
And
away.
I'm like, yo, I need a drink. So I go straight to the bar and I sit down and these guys pull up a seat for me and it ended up like, you show me your tattoos, I'll show you mine. We had a good old time. And my friend Francoise, she gets on the phone, she goes, Kelley, where are you? We're late for the dinner. I'll be, where are you? I said, I'm at the bar, I'll be there in 2 hours, So yeah.
Well, do you find that daring, risking people attract other daring, risky people? And is that part of the fun of it? Splash, you got to own that. You're thrown off a boat. Is that part of the attraction, Megan? You own
I didn't
daringness?
ask for it. I thought I was going down the stairs. I didn't ask for it. I think just trouble finds me, Yeah.
It's a certain energy, right? So if you walk in the room, it's going to find you. Well, it's not called trouble;
Well,
it's called
Right.
adventure. The
Yeah, I
adventure.
believe I have 2 guardian angels and they're both on Prozac. They're on leave of absence right now until the next big trip and they just solely Christmas,
So before we let you go, here is going to be your website popping up here. Let me
Thank
change
you.
that a little bit better here. Have it pop up over there. What are they going to find when you go to the White Wolf Advisory website?
Oh, they're going to find a really fun website that just gives an overview. It's really a placeholder, but if you go to the publicity where it says we're not just howling around, turn on your audio because it's a lot of fun. It's my sense of humor.
Final question.
That's all. And your show. Don't
Oh,
forget the
yeah,
show.
yeah.
The
So
show. A
it's
link to the show
it's a
on that
lot
site
of
as well.
fun. I call it intelligent entertainment. Rich, you're on in October. Yes, Sandra, I got to get you into the 2026 season,
That'd be
please.
great.
Yeah, it's intelligent entertainment, and it's meant to uplift, enlighten, and encourage people to be kind and aspire to greatness.
So, final question as we wind down here. We ask this of all of our guests, but we're on All In Magazine. What does going all in mean to you?
Well, I'm selling the Harley. It's time. It's over 850 pounds. It's getting a little big for me. And quite frankly, the way the weather patterns have been in the States, it's no fun to ride anymore, you know. So I said, well, everybody's hot for the bike. They're lining up to buy it. But I said, I need that one last hurrah. So I'm going with all my painkillers, the Tylenol, the Eastern machine, and I'm I'm renting a motorcycle and I'm riding through Nepal and Tibet.
Wow. Wow. Super
Yeah, yeah.
cool.
So
By yourself? By yourself? Or
unfortunately, I
with
can't go by myself because you can't get into Tibet. The Chinese won't let you in unless you're on a tour. But I'll be with, I think, 3 or 4 other riders, and they're coming from all over the world. So I'll meet them, and we'll share the ink and share the stories and the riding stories, and then say what's next.
That's awesome.
That's
That's awesome.
wonderful.
Very, very, very fun.
Yeah, I might actually run into Pat Falvey at the base camp of Everest. So you never know.
Take a lot of selfies. Let us know. Dr. Kelley, great to have you on All In Magazine here today. And
Thank
again,
you for having me. Thank you.
you are a daring woman. Don't stop.
I'll try not to.
So there you go, Sandra. What do you think of the daring adventure? I mean, from animals to motorcycle rides, she's still doing it.
Yeah, and handling boar and snake and all of those things in her own backyard. And you asked what I consider myself daring. Now, no, I've dropped myself down several notches. By comparison, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not. No, but I love that because when you speak to someone that has such an adventurous spirit, it reminds me anyway. I'll speak for myself. It reminds me to look for life in all of the corners, that those boundaries that she talked about. It's interesting because we can sometimes let those walls close in and be living so much smaller than we are really designed to live. So I love the fact that she can be so inspirational and encouraging us to maybe not say no quite so often and think about the possibilities of what we can be doing with our time and our fun and our businesses and everything. So yeah,
It takes me back to our families, jeeping, backpacking, going on an adventure. My brother hanging from a tree limb over a gorge. And it's a long drop. I mean,
my God.
That's what we did. And it takes me back to the whole idea of no boundaries. And we laugh, we joke, we rewatch the movies over and over again of mom telling us to get off the big rock. There's something about that daring adrenaline. It's fun, especially if you don't get hurt.
Yes, that's kind of the goal. I mean, in that case, I do think like I have to come back to the stuntman approach to things. And fear is good. Being completely fearless can mean that you can get yourself in a little more trouble. Fear is good. It kind of gives you a balance. But as we see with Kelley, it's not, fear is not there to paralyze you and keep you small. It's there to keep you safe. And so I think it's really interesting to be able to play with that line in our lives and go, okay, this is, I acknowledge the risk. Do what you can to keep yourself safe, but go for it. Really go for it. And
go all in. By the way, All In Magazine, hit the QR code. You want to subscribe to the magazine. There's not just the streaming videos. This is one of the feature interviews. Sandra D and I show up and do these. And then Kira publishes amazing interviews with other contributors as well from around the world. This is not one neighborhood, one city. This is a global magazine. Scan the QR code. Make sure you get involved with All In Magazine. Sandra, final words. We wrap up.
The magazine will take you everywhere, right? I was just going to say the magazine will take you everywhere. There are links throughout the magazine. So the days I love the good old fashioned magazines with flipping through the pages. With this way, you flip a page virtually and you get so much more so many different places you can explore. So it is an adventure. Every single issue is an adventure, which is really fun.
That's going to do it for this edition. Again, I'm the Trigger Rich Bond Trigger. That's Sandra D. Robinson. Come back next month. We'll have another amazing guest interview, all part of All In Magazine. Until then, I'm the Trigger Rich Bond